important structural components within your body, like your skin and collagen, comes from amino acids and protein and the foods that you're eating. And so we can certainly, invariably, protein sources are from animals or from eggs, and there are, obviously vegetarian sources of protein. Most foods have a little bit of protein in, but certainly the higher vegetarian sources of protein are going to be your beans, and your legumes. And I'm a big fan of hemp protein. Hemp protein is fantastic. All right, and so so protein's our other macronutrient, and then from there, our final macronutrient is probably one of the most perhaps confusing macronutrients in the modern world, are fats. And so, again, for me, fats are very, very important for you in your life, and we've got to be really eating the right kinds of fats. And so the basic way of describing this would be that ideally is to eat natural, undamaged fats. So if it's a natural fat, such as olive oil or avocado oil, or avocados, you're getting the fat out of eating avocados, or coconut oil, or even butter. I have no problem at all with you eating these fats. The oil, the omega-3 fatty acids from fish, very, very beneficial. Okay. The problems with fats we run into is when the fat has been damaged in some way. So whether the fat's been hydrogenated to basically make it more solid, as found in packaged and processed foods, whether it's a trans fat, so it's been damaged, again, often found in packaged and processed foods, whether it's traditionally like a runny fat like canola that's been chemically altered to be a firmer fat, again, some degree of damage. Okay, so we want natural, undamaged fats, and I have no problem at all with people eating natural and undamaged fats. And so when we start looking at, there's a continuum regarding macronutrients, fats, proteins, and carbohydrates, and everybody is different. And the reason being for this, research shows, not only are we genetically different, and we've all, our bodies have all adapted to the foods that were actually available to us in the part of the world where our ancestors grew up and lived and existed. And also our microbiome, so the bacteria, have also adapted to the foods and the regions in the world from which we've sort of our ancestors came. And so at one end of the continuum, we have protein type people. So protein type people, their bodies go very, very well on higher fat, higher protein diets. So these would be people who would go really well on a ketogenic diet or a MAD diet, which is a modified Atkins diet, so high fat, high protein. That actually stabilizes their blood sugar levels. They have more energy. They're able to lose weight. Okay, they feel better within themselves when they're eating that diet. But at the other end of the continuum, you've got more of a carbohydrate type person, and this person does much, much better on carbohydrates. So, whole food carbohydrates, whole grains, vegetables, starchy vegetables. They can eat these foods and again be very full for a long period of time, have stable blood sugar levels, and very much thrive on those kind of foods. And then, of course, you have people who are in the middle, more of the mixed type. And these days, it's not hard to measure your blood sugar levels. You can even buy monitors where you put a little patch on your arm, and then you can scan them using your phone, and you can track your blood sugar levels on a moment-by-moment basis. So not only have I've done that, but with many members of our team here at Be Pure, we've done that. And we found that everybody is dramatically different. For some people, when they eat white rice, their blood sugar levels will spike incredibly highly. Whereas for other people, when they eat white rice, their blood sugar levels are very stable. And so it's about eating the right foods for you to stabilize your blood sugar levels. So let's look at this a little bit more and see if we can't kind of give you some guidance perhaps as to where you are on this continuum. And I hope that's making sense for you. So I'm sure, at some point you may have had porridge for breakfast. Okay, so just think about when you have porridge for breakfast. So if you eat porridge for breakfast. Now, for some of you, when you eat porridge for breakfast, if you eat porridge for breakfast and you're able to stay full, and that porridge keeps you full all the way through to lunchtime, say 12:30, 1 o'clock, with good energy levels, then most likely you're probably on the carbohydrate end of the continuum. So most likely you're going to go really well eating predominantly carbohydrates. You'll go very well being a vegetarian invariably. And so that's a good sign. Now, for others of you, when you eat porridge for breakfast, if you get hungry at 9:30, after eating porridge for breakfast. Like that, for me, if I have porridge for breakfast at 7:30, I'm pretty much hungry by about 8:45. And so I need a lot more protein and fat, because my body, when I eat the porridge, my body just processes that porridge very, very quickly. I'm able to get the sugar from it very quickly. My blood sugar levels spike, and then I crash. All right. And so for some of you, if you get very hungry quickly after eating porridge, then most likely you are going to be on that protein side. And you're going to do much better perhaps with some eggs for breakfast, okay, some proteins and fats for breakfast. Now, if you're somebody, you may be sitting at home going, well, I can't get through to lunchtime, Dan, but I'm not hungry before 9 o'clock either. Perhaps it's 10:30, then most likely you're going to be in that mixed area. So you're going to be more in the middle, which means you're going to generally do better with a mixture of not only proteins and fats, but also some carbohydrates as well. All right. So it's about finding where you are. It's about listening to your body and then eating to stay full as possible. So, eating whole foods as fresh as possible that make you feel satiated longest, basically make you feel fullest for the longest time. So what I'd recommend is start looking at your foods that you're eating. Make a little bit of, you don't have to weigh them or anything like that. Just make a determination of, okay, well, dinner's quite easy. That meat's protein and fat, and the vegetables are carbohydrates. And start looking at your lunches and just being mindful of, okay, how much protein and fat is in your lunch, and then seeing how hungry you get, or whether you perhaps get a 3 o'clock crash in the afternoon, and tie that back to what you were eating to lunch, and whether you were eating just carbohydrates. Because very commonly when people just have carbohydrates for lunch, their blood sugar levels will go up, and then their blood sugar levels will crash, okay, at around 3 o'clock. And so start paying attention to these things. And as long as we're eating whole foods as fresh as possible that make you feel satiated the longest, we're moving in the right direction. Okay. So really invite you to start listening to your bodies and around what foods your body feels full on. So why whole foods? Well, whole foods provide the most nutrients per calorie. And so ideally, we wanting to try, the game is nutrition. The game is giving our bodies what our bodies need. Now, in the modern world, invariably, we don't need a lot of calories. It's relatively easy to get calories. What we're after is nutrients, okay? So let's talk about nutrients a little bit. So micronutrients, things like vitamins and minerals of major classes, are essential for every function in your body. So if you haven't got a particular micronutrient, you're going to get a rate limitation of the pathways that require that nutrient in your body. A good example of this would be perhaps the thyroid. And if you haven't got enough iodine, invariably your thyroid will work a little slower. It won't be able to make as much hormone thyroxine, and now thyroxine is very important because it helps control your metabolism. It helps control how many calories you burn doing nothing. It helps control your body fat percentage to a degree. It helps control peristalsis and bowel movements. And so if you have a slow underactive thyroid, then there's a lot of symptoms you can often get. And so we know that when you don't have enough iodine, the thyroid will actually increase its size to try and get more iodine out of the blood. And that's called a thyroid-induced goiter. So we really want to make sure we're getting enough of these nutrients. B vitamins are very, very important. And there's a large number of B vitamins, but they're required for many functions throughout your body, from metabolism of fats, proteins, carbohydrates, red blood cell metabolism, production of neurotransmitters and steroid hormones, and methylation cycle. That's a really important nutrient recycling pathway that really helps control our gene expression as well as our energy production on a daily level. So the best, high B vitamin foods, beef liver would actually be the highest, but I can appreciate many of you may not want to eat that. Lamb's very high, mushrooms are high, spinach, legumes, almonds, and whole grains. Again, the whole grain, because we don't want to get that spike on our blood sugar levels from eating those. Vitamin C is, again, another very, very important nutrient. It's required for, the synthesis of catecholamine and steroid hormones, production and maintenance of your collagen, your skin, your blood vessels, production of immune molecules. So it's very, very important for the immune system. It very much assists with your wound healing. Okay, so it helps your body recover. It helps protect your cells from damage, which is obviously very important from a longevity aging perspective. And there's also a multitude of enzyme reactions throughout the body that require vitamin C. And your best food sources are going to be fresh fruit and vegetables. Okay, so the fresher the fruit and vegetables, invariably the more vitamin C they will have in them, because vitamin C, as the fruits, vegetables get older, the vitamin C will get oxidized or damaged by oxygen and light. So when we look at vitamin C deficiency in New Zealand, Anitra Carr, very interesting, a professor at the University of Otago, Professor Anitra Carr, found that more than 2/3 of Kiwis, New Zealanders, tested over the age of 50 were low in vitamin C, more than 1 in 10 severely so. So I know that's surprising, but it surprised me because I was like, oh my gosh, you know, vitamin C is relatively easy to get. You just got to eat fresh fruits and vegetables. And I was like, my gosh, you know, are over 2/3 of Kiwis not eating fresh fruits and vegetables? And it made me realize that they probably are, or at least I believe they probably are, but they're not necessarily eating fresh fruits and vegetables. They're eating fruits and vegetables. So, again, this is why even the first sort of indication, not necessarily again, the first sort of indication that even if you're eating well in the modern world, we aren't necessarily getting all that we need from our diet. Right? And so magnesium is a very important mineral. It's required for over 300 enzyme functions, promotes the synthesis of ATP, which is our energy molecule within our body. It stabilizes blood sugar levels, very, very beneficial. It supports, relaxes the muscles and supports sleep. Incredible research around magnesium and actually sleep benefits. And we know obviously the importance for sleep for overall health. And it's also required in hormone synthesis. So magnesium content is declining in our foods, and I'll show you some of that research coming up. So high magnesium foods are going to be almonds, green leafy vegetables, fish, eggs. All right, so we've got to be eating those as much as possible. So a number of years ago, I was actually doing a master's degree in nutrition, and I had to get a software that had what this software allows you to do is allows you to put people's diets into the software and analyze the diet. And so as soon as I got the software, I put my diet in there. My diet was obviously very, very good. And I was surprised to see I was deficient in 5 key nutrients, even though I was eating what I'd class as an incredible diet. And so I blogged about that, and people started emailing me their diets. And so this diet I'm going to show you is somebody emailed me in their diet. And so this lady was eating 20 minutes before breakfast, she was having an apple cider vinegar and ginger juice. Okay, so that's very good for stimulating gastric function. And then for breakfast, she was basically having porridge with some soy yogurt, some soy linseed almond, and some chia seeds, and a soy milk. So she was dairy free, so she was consuming soy. So I have no problem with that post-menopause. A cup of black tea. For morning tea, she was having another tea and a handful of almonds. And for lunch, she was having 2 cups of chicken and vegetable soup, 2 rice breads with avocado and tuna, a couple of mandarins. And then for afternoon tea, she was having a green tea, a couple more rice breads with tahini and a carrot. And then for dinner, she was having 2 steamed fillets of teriyaki, spinach and silver bean, mashed carrot, parsnip and onion, a cup of peas, which she must have really liked her peas because it's a lot of peas, and a licorice tea before bed. And so, you look at that diet and you're like, wow, that's a pretty good diet. I think if most people ate that on a daily level, I think they could and would say that they have a healthy diet, right? Yeah. And so let me just explain around 2 things here. There's the RDA, so the recommended daily allowance. So the RDA is the minimum amount of nutrients we need not to have disease deficiency from that nutrient. So I've mentioned iodine already, so I'll continue talking about iodine. The RDA is 150 micrograms. So that's the minimum amount of iodine you need a day from your food to essentially not get a goiter. So essentially not have your thyroid expand to try and get more iodine out of the foods out of your bloodstream. All right. And so the RDA is the minimum amount of nutrients we need for not have a disease deficiency. So I don't know about you, but I don't want just the bare minimum for my body to work. Ideally, you want an optimal amount. So the optimal amount is called the SONA, suggested optimal nutritional allowance. And that's based on population studies of what would be the optimal amount for the population regarding nutrients. So anyway, I placed this lady's diet into the nutrition analysis software and analyzed it. And I was pretty shocked to see this, is that for vitamin D, she was below the RDA and below the SONA. Vitamin E below the RDA, below SONA. Vitamin C, she was fine. Food folate, she was below the RDA, below SONA. B3, she was below the RDA, below SONA. B6, she hit the minimum, but was below optimal. B1, she hit the minimum, it was below optimal. Calcium, she was low and below optimal. Selenium, low and below optimal. And then zinc, she hit the minimum and was below optimal. So there she is eating a really good diet, and yet she's massively deficient in many key areas regarding the nutrients that she's getting. And so if you just look down the right-hand side there, what they're needed for, you can see that's a pretty important list that we've really got to be making sure we get ticked off. And so it's not surprising that we find that. And so this is some research from the USDA, okay? And it's talking about the percent of population that have multiple deficiencies, okay? And so again, this is at the RDA. This is at the minimum level we need not to have a disease deficiency. So when you start looking at this, you know, these nutrients and the percentage of population, that people are incredibly deficient from the foods that we're eating. All right, and so let's talk about a little bit why that is. And so, but before we do that, you may think, well, that's the US. You know, New Zealand, we eat better than that. We've got, you know, better farming systems, perhaps. So what are we like in New Zealand? Well, you know, we've got a lot of deficiencies as well, unfortunately. I've mentioned vitamin C already, but vitamin D, 84% of New Zealanders tested are vitamin D deficient. Now, we do get vitamin D from sunshine, but you have to be outside in summer getting sun exposure to get that sunshine without sunscreen, okay? So primarily we need to be getting it from our diet. Iodine, 91% of New Zealanders tested were iodine deficient. Vitamin B12, 40% of New Zealanders over 65 have some degree of B12 deficiency. And then there's selenium. New Zealand blood selenium levels are 1.1. That's too low. We know that the long-term health benefits of selenium occur when we're really at 1.7, 1.8, so much higher than that. We look at, you know, folate levels in New Zealand. This is why the government recommend pregnant mothers supplement with folic acid to bring up their vitamin B9 levels, because, you know, we're often not getting enough. My question is, well, what about everyone else? Don't they need more B9? Most likely. Iron deficiency is very common in menstruating females. Zinc deficiency is very common as well. And then we've got trace minerals that are deficient in New Zealand soils, like boron and chromium. So most likely we're going to see that we're deficient in them as well. And so for me, if it's not in the soil, it can't be in our food. And so this is where we start seeing another problem as to why we are so deficient in the modern world, even though we may well be eating a very good diet. So we have mineral depleted soils. The USDA data shows us up to a 38% decline in protein, calcium, vitamin C, phosphorus, iron, riboflavin. Again, from 1941 to 2001, it was found that iron, zinc, copper, magnesium, selenium levels declined 63%. That was the same deal in the UK, and most likely very similar here, because we're not really paying farmers enough money to put trace minerals back into the soil. Farmers are, you know, are paid on weight of produce, so not necessarily paid on nutrient content of that produce that they're producing. So if you can produce big, heavy vegetables that are full of water, like a big leek that tastes, you know, has very little taste, you know, that's fine. But the trouble is, we're interested in the nutrients found in the food very much. And there's another problem in the modern world when it comes to modern farming, that's excess nitrogen use. And the reason being for that is because plants access the minerals within the soil through the roots, and the synergistic relationship between the fungi and bacteria within that soil. And so when you start putting excess nitrogen on the soil, you can shrink the root structure by up to about 90%. And so what that then means is the plant can only access the minerals in the top 10% of the soil. So we end up again with really big plants that taste like water, because they haven't got the nutrients and the complex molecules that the plant needs to make those molecules, because of the minerals and vitamins that are deficient in that plant. So what to do? What do we do about this? Well, in an ideal world, we'd grow our own produce, or we'd buy from local farmers market, which is still a great alternative. But I don't know about you, but time's often short in the modern world, and you may not want to do that. And so for me, what I'd recommend is eat a varied, nutrient-dense diet that's right for you, and then top up with supporting nutritional products. Okay, so you just try and eat as well as you can in the modern world, and then and then just top up with the things that you're most likely going to be deficient in. Okay, so going back 12, 13 years ago, I was working with a lot of people specifically around nutrient levels. And what I used to recommend to people was vitamin D with boron and selenium. So recommend they take a supplement with vitamin D and boron and selenium, an antioxidant supplement, a B vitamin supplement, a vitamin C supplement, a macro mineral supplement, a trace mineral supplement, an iodine supplement, a zinc supplement, and then also a fish oil. And I was recommending these things, and we were getting incredible results. And people were coming up to me, telling me how good they were feeling. And then one day a lady came up to me and she said, Ben, I'm feeling the best I've felt in years. This is incredible. But it's a pain in the ass taking all these supplements. And some were capsules and some were powders and some were liquids, and they'd all run out at different times. It was incredibly expensive. And she goes, is there not one supplement that I could take just has all these things in? And I was like, no, I'm sorry, there's not one thing that's got what's missing in New Zealand soils, not one thing that's got all the extra nutrients that we need for what's missing in the population. And not one supplement has all these things in. And she looked at me and she said, well, can't you make one? And I thought about it, and I'm like, wow, that's a great idea. And it took me a little while to do it, but after probably a year and a half, BPL-1 was born. So with BPL-1, we were able to get all of those nutrients except for the fish oil into one bottle, all right, into one bottle, and obviously called BPL-1. And so this is what it's got in it. It's got all your fat-soluble vitamins, A, E, D, and K. It's your water-soluble vitamins, your B vitamins, your vitamin C, and then we move into the trace minerals that are missing in New Zealand soils, like selenium and boron and vanadium and chromium, and then we're moving into some of the macro minerals like magnesium, zinc. And so with the minerals, they're all chelated or they're attached to a protein, just as occurs in nature. So you get maximum absorption from them while you're eating. And it's in an organic leafy green base. So it's got over 50 ingredients in it. So really designed to support anything that could be missing in your diet from a nutrient, vitamin, mineral, sort of phytonutrient aspect. Okay, so let me tell you about why cheap supplements don't work, because you might wonder, well, can't I just buy, like the cheapest possible supplement? You can, but the trouble is often they don't work. And the reason being is that many of the cheap forms of minerals and vitamins, they're poorly absorbed in your body. Often they don't have the adequate quantity to make a difference. They don't have what's missing in modern soils. They have minimal antioxidants. They often have no whole food base. They often have no superfoods. And sometimes they even have uncertified manufacturers, so you can't even be sure what's actually in them. So you may be thinking, why do we need to supplement? And our ancestors didn't supplement. Why should we need to? And there's a lot of reasons for that. Modern farming techniques is one reason. Nutrient depleted soil. Modern food convenience is the fact that we can get all the foods pretty much all the year round. We're not eating necessarily fresh when it comes to those foods. We have increased stress, I think, in the modern world, and an increased output regarding how we live our lives. And that increased output requires increased nutrition. We've got decreased absorption, often with many people suffering from various gut issues. We have increased environmental toxicity, so we have an increased workload of our detoxification organs to be able to get rid of the toxins in the environment, which often require more nutrients. And we have a lack of a whole nutrient-dense food. We're not necessarily eating the whole animal anymore, and not necessarily eating organ meats, which are often the most nutrient aspects of the animal. And what we now know is also that our optimal levels are higher than the minimum, which is the RDA. Okay, so we're not looking just to not get a disease from a nutrient deficiency. We're looking for you feeling your best and getting the most out of your life. So we get a lot of incredible praise for BPL-1. Things like, I can't believe how I started to feel like my old self again since starting BPL-1. I've been taking BPL-1 for over a month now, and I love that it's just a one-stop shop for all the vitamins I had on my list to buy. I've already noticed a difference in overall energy and skin health. I also trust BPL to provide us only the best quality. So, BPL exists to transform life. So that's by definition, our products have to be high efficacy. Okay, because that's the purpose of the company, is to transform people's lives through diet and lifestyle practices. So for the past 20 years, this person had terrible eczema all around her eyes, red, sore, itchy. I've tried many things, but never found anything that works. And after a week of taking BPL-1 and 3, the eczema cleared up. I was absolutely stunned to see such a profound effect. Be Pure was the best health investment I've ever made in the long term. And I'm sure many of you are already taking Be Pure One, and so thank you for that. And I mean, I obviously take them. And if you haven't, please, just check out the reviews of Be Pure One or any of our products, and you're gonna see in the reviews just how incredible the results are for people. Okay, so let's move into gut health. So gut health is arguably, again, one of the most important things in our bodies for health. And really the digestive system is important for a couple of reasons. The first reason is where we absorb nutrients. And the second reason, it's the home of our immune system. So, up to 80% of our immune system is located in the digestive system. And for that reason, when we start getting problems in our immune system, we also start getting problems to do with inflammation. And so we'll talk about that just shortly. It's also the home of our microbiome. So the microbiome is this community of organisms that primarily lives within the large intestine that is a synergistic relationship. So it makes a lot of the neurotransmitters that control how we think and feel, like serotonin and tryptophan and dopamine. It makes some B vitamins. And so it's a synergistic relationship between the microbiome and how we think and feel. And so the gut microbiota now has been shown to really affect, our fat storage, our energy balance, low-grade inflammation, stress reactivity, our behavior, our immune system, and again, really coming through and affecting the gut-brain axis, affecting how we think and feel and our experience of life. So having the gut work really well and the microbiome be very healthy is incredibly important, not only for gut health, but also for whole body health. And so the research on the microbiome very much shows that we need a broad, wide, deep microbiome. So the broader, wider, more depth our microbiome, that's coupled with better health outcomes. But the trouble is, in the modern world, because of a variety of reasons, the foods we're consuming and antibiotic use, a lot of our microbiomes are very small and narrow, and that's very much coupled then with I want to say metabolic disorder, which basically means problems throughout our metabolism within our body. Right. So another problem we have is we have full tummies but starving bugs. It's because whenever we eat, we're not only feeding ourselves, as in our physical body, we're also feeding the microbiome in our large intestine. And so if we're not eating the right foods, we're eating, say, too much processed grains or sugars, we end up feeding the unfriendly strains of bacteria and yeasts, which can then cause digestive problems. And so this is another reason why we should be eating whole foods, so that we're able to feed those beneficial bacteria. And so these are called prebiotic foods. Prebiotic foods are foods that feed the beneficial bacteria. And so the standout performers here would be the garlic, the onion, the leeks, your beans, your legumes, peas. These kind of foods are going to be very, very beneficial. Okay, so by eating those, you're going to be feeding the beneficial bacteria. And then we can actually introduce more beneficial bacteria through probiotic food sources. So these can be things like raw dairy, kefir yogurt, sourdough bread, sauerkraut, fermented vegetables, pickled foods, kimchi, natto, tempeh fermented soybeans, kefir milk, kombucha tea, fermented kvass, or even just like your basic apple cider vinegar. Perhaps if you're having an apple cider vinegar shot before breakfast, or a glass of apple cider vinegar with water. If you're using a raw apple cider vinegar, that can be a probiotic source. My studies of traditional cultures showed that the traditional cultures were getting 12 to 15 servings of probiotics a day from the foods they were eating. Why? Because they didn't have refrigerators. And so a lot of the storage methods, traditional storage methods around foods, involved fermentation processes. So a number of years ago, I developed a probiotic to really help support people's microbiomes, given the importance it is to not only their gut, but also how they think and feel. And so it's called Be Pure 2. And so with Be Pure 2, it has 19 strains of beneficial bacteria. So it's got that breadth and depth. And these strains are specifically selected for their unique health properties that are shown in research. It's got a minimum 30 billion viable bacteria per serving. So it's got a lot of bacteria as well. There's no need for refrigeration. It's in a special capsule that helps deliver the probiotics beyond the stomach to where they're needed. And it also contains the prebiotics, so the food for the bacteria, so that when they do arrive, there's some food for them so that they can help colonate your intestines. All right. So supporting the microbiome is not only going to help your gut health, but it's actually going to help inflammation, because your digestive system is really the home of your control systems for inflammation within your body. So what is inflammation? Inflammation is the collateral damage caused by your immune system protecting you from invaders and repairing the natural damage that occurs in your body. So, by default, we're going to always have a little inflammation within our bodies because there's always repair going on. But, so there's healthy and unhealthy inflammation. Healthy inflammation is, when your body fights off a virus or a bacteria, you're going to get some inflammation, but that's very healthy and natural to do. Unhealthy inflammation occurs when that process doesn't stop, when that process continues on and starts causing more damage than that is actually required. So there's also acute and chronic inflammation. Acute would be an example of that would be if you roll your ankle and damage some of perhaps the ligament in your ankle or the tendons, you're going to get some inflammation as your body comes in and repairs those damaged cells. Okay, but an example of chronic inflammation would be if you suffer from dermatitis, so inflammatory skin condition. Okay, that's obviously not necessarily what we want long term, is to have inflamed skin the whole time. And so we then that brings us very much onto systemic inflammation. So systemic inflammation is inflammation where we have a higher level of inflammation throughout our whole body. And this, then can drive many issues, from skin issues through to autoimmune conditions, through to joints that ache, just aches and pains. And so this heart disease, by the way, late 1990s, a group of German scientists showed that it was systemic inflammation that was the driver of heart disease. But then it's obviously asking the question, what's causing the inflammation? So what is causing the inflammation? So one food, if I was to give you one food to eliminate to help your inflammation levels and lower your inflammation levels from an anti-inflammatory diet, it would be to avoid gluten-containing foods. So gluten's a protein that's found in wheat, barley, and rye. And for many people, it's inflammatory. In fact, the research shows that gluten is inflammatory for everyone, not just people with celiac. We know people with celiac disease have a very severe immune response and IgA immune response to gluten, big problems for them. But this research showed that not only did celiacs get an inflammatory response from gluten, but everybody else did too. Okay, so if you want to lower your inflammation levels, then I'd recommend going gluten-free. We can also start looking to avoid omega-6 fatty acids, because omega-6 fatty acids predominantly drive inflammation. So these are found in processed foods, they're found in cereals, they're found in breads, vegetables like canola oil, grain-fed animal meats, especially in unhealthy animals. And the exception to this would be gamma-linolenic acid, which is GLA, which is found in evening primrose and borage oil. They're an omega-6 fatty acid, which is not going to drive inflammation. So again, moving back to this natural whole food diet is going to be naturally anti-inflammatory. So we want to reduce these omega-6 levels. And then what does anti-inflammatory mean? Well, it's one of those buzzwords of our time. So what does it mean and why is it important? It basically means anti-inflammatory. It means it either shuts down inflammatory processes or stops them from occurring in the beginning, or actually helps turn off the inflammatory response, which is that turning off is very, very important because, like I said, some inflammation is natural and healthy. It keeps us safe. But we want that inflammation to be turned off as soon as possible. So omega-3 fatty acids, they really help manage and turn off inflammation. So fresh cold water fish, green leafy vegetables, beans, lentils, grass-fed animal meats, free-range eggs, chia seeds, flax seeds, walnuts, all have increased levels of omega-3s. And probably one of the best sources of omega-3s would be fish oils, because you're getting the concentrated levels. So omega-3 fatty levels, they help reduce inflammation. And so for that reason, I'm a big fan of people taking a high quality fish oil. And not only for the anti-inflammatory aspects, but fish oils also increase your metabolic rate by 14%, which means you burn 14% more calories doing nothing. That's pretty good in the modern world when many of us are struggling to manage our weight. It increases the rate of fat oxidation during exercise by 27%. So if you're somebody who's exercising with a specific purpose of losing body fat, having high omega-3 supplementation, increases how much fat you burn by 27%. It also decreases our triglycerides and increases our good cholesterol. Okay, so very, very beneficial for heart health. So I highly recommend taking a high quality fish oil like BPO3. So BPO3 is an incredibly strong fish oil, and it's high strength. So it has 1,400 milligrams of EPA and DHA per serve. So that's equivalent to eating 100 grams of salmon a day. Okay, so it's very, very strong. It's very pure, so it's batch tested for heavy metals. It's also undamaged. We batch test for oxidization. It's actually encapsulated in under a blanket of nitrogen, so oxygen doesn't even touch it. It also contains fat-soluble vitamins A and D, which are often found with these fats, and many people, as we've already spoken about, are deficient in these. And it's also sustainably caught from the South Pacific. All right. So I've got a special offer tonight for you to help pull these things together and make it as easy as possible for you to implement what we've spoken about tonight. And what it includes the Everyday Wellness Pack. So the Everyday Wellness Pack is an incredible pack that is our base recommendation for people in the modern world. It includes BPL1. So that's the multivitamin with kind of all the minerals and vitamins and everything that you need in it. It includes BPL2, which is the probiotic for your gut health, to get your gut working, to improve not only the absorption of your nutrients, but also your inflammatory responses. And then also BPL3 to really get the benefits of the omega-3 fatty acids, not only shutting down your inflammation, but all those other benefits from having omega-3 fatty acids. At the moment, we're also giving away a 30-day change challenge with it. So this is a 30-day change program that really helps you implement these new habits into your daily life so you can experience the benefits long term. Now, tonight, because you spent the time listening to this web class, we've also put together and want to give you the Be Pure Whole Food Eating Guide. This is an incredible guide that really tells you just things like what do you keep in the cupboard, what foods should you be focusing on, foods to avoid, the best fats, carbohydrates, proteins. So really it goes beyond what I've had time to talk about tonight to give you those details, and obviously you can print it to PDF, or you can just reference it so that you can make it really easy for you to just eat the right food. So you've got everything in the cupboard you need to eat that way. It includes a food journal and meal planner as well. And also even talks about things like cravings and emotional eating. So that will be included as well. And then also tonight, because we're coming into winter and a lot of people are going to be low in vitamin D through winter, I also want to give you a Be Pure Vitamin D Restore, which is valued at $39. And so the goal with that is that we're going to get your vitamin D levels up, and then the BPL1 and the BPL3 have a little bit of, a decent amount of vitamin D in both of them, and that will maintain you going forward. And so, it's an incredible pack. And so there's a special link to the products in the chat. So if you want to purchase that, you can just click on that link and roll from there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just jump out of the slideshow, and then we're going to go ahead and take some questions. Let me come out. All right. Here we go. So we got some questions. All right. Let's why about heat effects during vitamins and minerals during delivery to Australia? And so when we start looking at heat effects, it's a valid concern. But with vitamins and minerals, they're very stable from a heat perspective. Okay, so I have no problems at all with BPL1 or BPL2. My main concern would be BPL3. You wouldn't want it out, on a 40-degree heat on your doorstep for a long period of time. Okay, so it's just being mindful of that. Certainly in the shade, I'm not going to have a problem about it from a damage perspective. We have deliveries to Australia, which could take 2 to 3 days, and so they're delivered very, very quickly, and obviously they're for safety and not running into sort of prolonged temperatures. And I wouldn't leave them in a car during summer. The fish oils again. I've got a question here. I've been taking BPL1 and BPL3 at home, but I've been putting them on hold as I've been feeling great without them. How do I know what vitamins and minerals I'm missing and to know whether I should be taking them? That's great. You're feeling great. That's fantastic. And so the key to it is to continue feeling great. And unfortunately, it's very difficult and very expensive to do whole testing of nutrient ranges regarding requirement and need. The most cheapest, cost-effective way of doing it is just to keep taking a supplement and to ensure that you're not going to get deficient. Yeah, I know that's kind of a strange thing to do, but yeah, after doing so much testing, it's really a matter of making sure that you're continuing to replenish those levels, because once you start getting into testing, it gets incredibly expensive very quickly. I used to do that extensively on myself. So we're talking, oh my gosh, I used to do 60 blood tests and about 280 urine metabolites, and I used to do that every 6 months, and so it's very expensive to do that. But what I found is that, if anything, I was just low in a couple of nutrients, and I needed actually even more of those nutrients, like vitamin B2 was one of the ones genetically I needed a lot more than actually I was getting, so I had to take it actually even more than I was actually getting. So question, does freezing fruit and vegetables affect the amount of vitamin C? So snap freezing, the water-soluble vitamins come through with snap freezing are actually a little bit better sometimes than fresh. It depends on the vitamin and obviously how quickly it's been frozen. But this is why, frozen foods can be a good choice sometimes, because some of those nutrients will come through actually better. If you don't eat meat, how can I replace my B12? If you don't eat meat, the best way probably is going to be just to supplement with B12. Okay, so if you don't eat meat, often there's B12 and zinc are going to be a couple of, and iron for menstruating women are going to be your 3 major deficiencies that you're going to have to deal with. So whenever you just realize, whenever you cut out any food to a degree or food group, invariably that's going to lead to increased chances of deficiencies and problems. And so if you're vegetarian, then that's B12 and zinc and iron. But if you're ketogenic, then often you're going to be definitely more likely to be deficient in vitamin C, because you're not getting the fruits and vegetables that you need that contain that vitamin C. Okay, because you're primarily eating fats and proteins. So again, it's just balancing those things off. Yeah, this is where you, Kiora, this is where you can ask the questions if you've got a question. Cool. Do you think there's a correction between plant-based diets, a correlation between plant-based diets and amenorrhea? So amenorrhea, not menstruating. I don't know if there's a connection. I've never seen anything in the research regarding connections, but for me, we certainly, with plant-based diets, if you're just eating, like a vegan diet, it's actually very difficult to get enough calories. You have to eat a lot of food. And often what happens for many people is they end up not getting enough calories. And so that's definitely then associated with low body fat, is then associated with amenorrhea. Okay, so often when women are under 18 or 19% body fat, their menstruation cycle and ovulation will turn off. So, from that perspective, I definitely think there is some correlation. All right. How long is the special offer available for? That's a good question. I don't know. I'll have to get one of the team to let me know, and maybe we'll type it in there so we know it's good for you. What is good for thyroids? What's good for thyroids is zinc, selenium, iodine. Very good. Avoiding gluten is incredible for thyroids. Every case of underactive or overactive thyroid I've ever seen, gluten has been a problem. And we're talking, probably over 100 cases. All right, gluten has been a problem, and that's through testing. 48 hours. Look at that. So we get 48 hours. So the tonight's special offer is available for 48 hours. Okay, let me just scroll back up to see. Can I take these while fasting? I often do 24-hour fasts. So what I would recommend while fasting is I would recommend not supplementing while you're fasting. Okay, and I'm a huge fan of the benefits of fasting, but with fasting, what you're trying to do is to kind of put our system into an extreme recovery aspect, and so. For me, I would not take supplements while I fast, but then take supplements as soon as I start eating again, and making sure I take supplements my last meal as well. So I'm again making sure that I have the nutrients on board to kind of fully recover from that fast, because it's in the recovery that we also get the benefits. So you get the benefits not only from the fasting with cell apoptosis, so going around cleaning up all those old cells, but then it's the stem cell release that gets gets pushed when we start eating again that comes in and starts repairing. And so you want to make sure that you've got the nutrients available to build those stem cells going forward. All right, let me just have a look. The link's coming. Hopefully some of you asking around, where's the link? That link should be there. Very good. Good. All right. Well, if any other questions we didn't get through, we will answer them, and I guess we can answer them on here, or we can perhaps email you if we can see who you are. And so I just want to thank you very much for coming out tonight and listening to this information, and for following and supporting Be Pure Health. And yeah, and if we can help in any way at all, please don't hesitate to email us or call us. And yeah, go well, be well. God bless you all. Thanks so much. Have a great evening, and stay healthy out there, okay? Bye for now.